Hello, my name is Jacob Toole. Welcome to TheatreQs.
Howdy everyone, I am so excited for this episode of TheatreQs. I have an incredible guest, Jacob Toole, who will be joining me in part to discuss the original musical that he is currently directing and producing, which he wrote with Ben Teller, Death Do Us Part. Now, today's fun fact is actually an audio teaser for Death Do Us Part, which will be performed on the proscenium stage at Pima Community College's West Campus on August 7th and 8th. Tickets and more information are at rigbytheater.com or at the link in the description. Now, enjoy this sneak peek at the Rigby Theater Company's incredible original musical, Death Do Us Part.
The crystallized power of Cassie, Shepherd, and everyone else in our hands. Right here in Outlaw Paradise. The Cassie Shepherd. Glory's here to stay.
Is that necessary?
Nah, but it sure felt good.
My guest today began theater in high school and has fallen in love with it. He founded the Rigby Theater Company, which has produced 2 productions and a staged reading so far, a 3rd coming soon. He has also performed around Tucson and with Salpointe Catholic High School in roles like Hermes in Hadestown Teen Edition, the Black Stash in Peter and the Starcatcher, Jack in Into the Woods, and others. He is an incoming freshman at Northwestern University. His mission and his work are exceptional, and I'm thrilled to have him on the podcast. Jacob Toole, welcome to TheatreQs. How did you get started in theater?
I flipped a coin is the answer I'll give you. I was picking something to do for my high school experience. It was between this and tennis, auditioning for the school musical and JV tennis. And I flipped, and I'd like to imagine I got the better end of that coin flip. And I decided to audition, and I decided to commit myself wholeheartedly to it, which I think anybody who has not done theater and is interested in getting started, you find some opportunity, some venue that is accessible to you. And if you dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to it, I guarantee you, you will find something that is valuable to you, something that is enjoyable to you, and something that you then want to spend the rest of your life on.
It's very much a labor of love.
Oh my gosh, yes, constantly. It is a constant labor. It is a constant, frequently annoying labor, but it is one that you love so deeply.
So when you got started at Salpointe with theater, was it an instant click? Did you know right away from the get-go, like, I want to do this as soon as you started? Or was it kind of a gradual throughout your 4 years you developed a much bigger love of it?
I would identify in particular throughout my first year. I think it was a little bit gradual at that point. And there was a very specific turning point where I went to a Arts Express community theater production of Rent. And I went to that production of Rent. And I remember leaving that theater and all of the friends that I had made over the past year, more friends than I had ever had in my life, and with whom I was talking more easily and more confidently than I had ever had in life, because I had been forced to develop public speaking skills, and I had been forced to develop the ability to improvise with people and kind of be a little bit more in touch with the present moment. I think just that small moment, I remember being there and I cried in the Arts Express lobby. Cece Harris can attest to that, who was there with me. But I remember that very specific turning point moment of realizing, man, this art has changed me so significantly. It has made me so much happier. It has made me so much better of a person, and to a point where I do want to spend the rest of my life becoming an artist and becoming a more interesting, more happy person. I think that's a great path to do it.
So that was the point when you realized you want to continue this. Was there a point when you realized this is a career path? Because those are 2 very different realizations, realizing you want to continue and realizing, yes, this is something that I want to dedicate my life to.
That's fair. I think I had a previous kind of pie in the sky notion that I would want to continue doing this. It's kind of like you don't think when you're when you're starting out and you're just enjoying that time in the moment, especially in high school, it's very easy to just be like, I would love to keep doing this, but I'm not really going to put much thought into it. I think the point where I really truly realized that like not only can I do this, it is viable was actually after the first Rigby show. I really believe that. I think after having been on the other end of the table and after discovering how plausible it was, not only to perform locally, which I had, but create opportunities for myself and hunt for them where I'm struggling to find ones. That put a tinge of realism to a career in the arts, and I think it's more achievable than a lot of people realize. Because I'm associated with that pie in the sky notion of I want to keep doing this. Is it's either Broadway or bust, but
Hmm.
you don't have to be in the MLB to play baseball, and you don't have to be at the absolute highest echelons of the arts in order to participate in the arts. I think the arts are overflowing with opportunities, um, and if you're struggling to find one, take it on yourself every once in a while.
When you are performing, what is your goal? I think everyone as they're performing has a different goal of what they want to achieve, what they want the audience to kind of take out of your performance. Do you have like an overarching goal that when you're performing or when you're putting together a project, you want people to take away from the work that you do?
Sure. On the note of performing in particular, because I think performing is different from just a broad project. I'd like to imagine that if I am performing and I'm actively thinking while I'm on stage about what I want people to take away from my performance, I'm probably doing something wrong. My objective specifically when I'm performing, and especially as an actor in those roles, is to kind of achieve a flow state a little bit, where I lose the burdens of the outside world and I lose anything I'm stressed about and I lose anything except what is currently in front of me in that moment, in that character's eyes. If I'm succeeding in doing that, I can guarantee that the audience will be able to tag along and kind of suspend their own disbelief.
I think kind of tying into that, I think one of the most important parts of the work that you do, especially, is you're helping younger actors and performers kind of cultivate that love of theater and also that realization that yes, you're doing this for your benefit, but you're also doing it to perform to your best ability for the audience.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, if you are performing and the person who you are performing for, your overarching objective and the reason you are on stage is for your own benefit or just for yourself, you are probably not doing it right. I have my doubts that is a good path to go.
For sure. You brought up the MLB. I know members of your family, your siblings are involved in sports. How does kind of theater tie into your family lifestyle?
Um, among my siblings, not in the slightest. We wrote a song for Bruisers, which is a song cycle that Ben Teller and I wrote alongside a variety of different Tucson artists. And in that, there's a number called Majoring in Arts, which I'm sure you have probably gleaned the question that you are now asking from the line, all my siblings are athletes, that is said in that. But there is definitely a bit of a contrast between the things that we're interested, the things that we talk about, how we look at the world. If you are coming at the world and just your life from the perspective of an athlete, I think that is a very different culture. It is a very different environment than being an artist. Both in just the type of people that you interact with, how you interact, the places that you interact with, the sort of schedules you're leading. There's definitely a bit of a contrast between that and my family. I will say though, my mother was an amateur stage actor. She did shows at LTW. She did shows in college, and she could not be more thrilled about what I'm doing with my life. Very grateful to be able to say. Not to say that the rest of my family isn't. They go to the shows, they love the shows, they're very supportive, and I love them so much, and I'm so glad to be part of this family. But having there is a fundamental cultural divide that is present somewhat with my siblings and is not as much with my mother. She enjoys connecting with me on those things. It's neat.
How has the support of people like your mother made your journey, especially as you're starting a theater company and as the company has grown? How has that kind of facilitated that growth?
I will tell you, nobody will toot my own horn very publicly like my mother, including everybody else in the cast too. If anybody uh, is following my mother's page, she will constantly post clips of us in rehearsal and caption it, saying where we're going to college and all the crazy things we've done. And she will do that for me. She will do that for all of my friends. She is my number one. I have unwittingly turned my mother's Instagram account into a Rigby Theater Co fan account, and that is a terrifying thing that has happened. And I could not be more grateful. Love you, mom.
It works for marketing.
It probably doesn't hurt, honestly. It really doesn't.
When did you start the company? Was the genesis of the company your Young Playwrights Productions, or had you
Yes.
thought about starting it beforehand?
Oh, I had thought about starting it far previous to that. Um, the moment that I'd really gotten the idea is actually it was my sophomore year at Salpointe. We had just wrapped up a production of Legally Blonde that occurred there, and after it, after a series of complaints and other things that I probably shouldn't get too far into, Salpointe imposed a quote faith-based filtering system on the shows that we were allowed to produce at Salpointe, to a point where we would have to run everything by them and by some clergy representatives as well, and they
Hmm.
could approve or shoot down any script that we wanted to do. And it made me realize how little control students have in student and youth spaces, where there's always an adult in the background who you defer to in everything, and there's always an administrative system and bureaucracy who you defer to,
Mm-hmm.
and they handle most of the busy work in that, and that is something that we are very grateful for. But it also means that we do not have a space that is uniquely ours to do anything that we want with, and also one that is accessible. That is worth mentioning as well. A lot of these youth spaces are often several $100 purchases for kids or their families, and you get what you pay for. I'm not criticizing any one company. I think that the professionals that they provide, the spaces and the sets they provide are fantastic, and I think you get what you don't pay for with us. I cannot bring a professional choreographer on, but what we can do is provide any existing alternative, like any alternative, to a point where if you are a student who wants to get involved in theater, you do not need to pay to join the Rigby Theater Company, as opposed to, I know several students, several very talented people who have been dissuaded from doing youth theater outside of their schools or outside of very small environments, because the first thing that you are told if you want to do student theater, at least in this city, is open your wallet. And the fact that there was no previous alternative to that, the fact that there was no great free environment that was specifically for students, I wanted to create something that opened an opportunity like that. I wanted a student controlled space that was also accessible for students. So it's meaningful in that it's student controlled and it's accessible as well, and that is the impetus for that company.
How do you take what you learned and observed from Salpointe Catholic High School's filtering system, and how do you apply it to your own work? Because to a certain degree, you do have to filter for content.
For our upcoming production, you will notice in Death Do Us Part that we do never cuss. That is the case. If throughout the entire show, I've strictly forbade it, and I also strictly forbid that in the improvisations that the actors give, which has been a slight headache sometimes. God bless Silas. But I understand that there definitely does need to be a degree of censorship, and there definitely does need to be an initial filter that everything has to go through in order to be marketable, in order to appeal to a large audience. But I also think sometimes it scares people a little bit, away from trying to
Mm-hmm.
take bigger risks, away from. I will say in the Young Playwright Showcase in particular, we did have some material that covered some more serious subjects, and subjects like there was a girl who was dealing with sort of an abusive relationship. There's the whole narrative of spiral of a man going insane and dying on stage, and you get to see into his mind. I don't think sort of things like that could pass through filtering system, but and yet still they are marketable. Maybe not to a strictly Catholic youth theater audience, but to a broader Tucson community. People do want to see stories that are a little bit challenging and a little bit interesting in that sense. And I think as we as we work with more students who are learning that they have a space to say what they want to say what they need to say, even if it can be a little bit challenging at times, I find that to be very valuable. And I think that circumventing a strict filtering system has let us do that a little bit more effectively.
That's, incredibly valuable what the Rigby Theater Company is doing and bringing to the table, because the youth voice and the youth perspective is something that's not frequently heard within this community.
Sure. I would make the note of, I do think they're especially with the inner voice productions, I think they've been doing a fantastic job at working with more mature material and also circumventing that sort of filter like I was talking about. Um, but the point of the Rigby Company in particular is the student voice, and especially trying to make a world, make an environment where kids can say precisely what they need to say. These writers, these actors have full freedom within reason, full freedom to express themselves and to give the narratives that they need to say without worry of there being a heavy filter. Because we want to give stages for things that are a little bit weird and a little bit zany, where there's grave robbers on stage and the ghosts in somebody's head on stage, both in Spiral and in Death Do Us Part. And there's heartbreaking songs and bruisers of people struggling with sort of a religious conscience. And there's also silly things happening where you have your dumb songs like Majoring in Arts, or silly things like Mikey's interactions or Dig Me Up. Yeah, these are all songs and pieces specifically that I'm referencing that have happened or will happen among the Rigby Theater Company. And I think having that variation and trying to set a precedent of you can do what you want here and giving people the stage and the resources to do that has been so fulfilling, and it has been so nice. And I will say also, the writers themselves and the directors and the actors have come up and told me that. I will give the specific example that I rattle off sometimes of Spiral and Isis Rivenbark, who was our young playwright for that particular show. It was part of our young playwright showcase, who came up to me after the show, after having seen it stage, and I've never seen Isis happier. And she said, I know exactly what I want to do with this show now. Seeing this has been extremely valuable. She revised it and she submitted it to a national playwriting competition, and it scored well, which is great, which is very,
That's
very
incredible.
impressive. And I'm so proud of that person. And it is moments like that that make that buildup of trying to establish a you can do what you want here. We will give you the resources, so valuable to me and so meaningful to me. Um, but yeah, that's where I'd go with that.
Have you, when you first started the company, in hindsight, looking at it today, would you have expected to now be writing and producing your own musical? And the growth, the amount of participation, would you have expected that at all?
Oh my goodness. No, not in the slightest. When you will notice in my Instagram posts, when I announce that we are doing something new, I fundamentally announce nothing. And the Young Playwright Showcase, it was, hey, I want to produce your plays. Please write plays for me. In Bruisers, it is, hey, we'd like to make a song cycle. I can give you nothing except please write me half of a musical. In Death Do Us Part, I said, hey, venue and dates coming soon. Here's what this kind of is. It's all been very big. It's all been frankly vaguer than I frankly would like it to be, because oftentimes we're flying by the seat of our pants with these production schedules, as I'm sure you're learning. As our stage manager on Death Do Us Part, thank you, Mr. Wiley. But I think that despite the fact that that is the case, it is kids' enthusiasm and the talent and the time and the effort that people bring into it that legitimizes it. When you have so many of these fascinatingly talented student artists come into your company and give their all, give their full effort, and have it genuinely produce a very impressive product, that legitimizes us somewhat. And I think that has snowballed more and more and more and more over time, to a point where this company is now a far larger thing than I had ever anticipated it being. It was intended to sort of be a model or a theoretical experiment to see if I could create an alternative space to ones that I've been seeing that had a little bit of differences. Just to try something, to do something new, and maybe to discover something about myself as an artist and as a producer, especially. It's been a very interesting frontier to go through. But having it snowball to a point where there are so many people for whom this company and these projects are meaningful and things that they want to dedicate so much extra time to, things that people come to set constructions and all of these rehearsals and are practicing constantly on their own time. Kids are being more responsible in terms of learning their stuff on time in this show than I've seen in many things that they pay to be a part of, which is crazy to me. um but no, I never expected it to be like this, and I never expected it. I never expected myself to be able to write something on the scale of Death Do His Part. But I think it is the enthusiasm of so many other kids that are involved with these projects that have propelled me to want to do more. And I would like to imagine have propelled the company into being something far larger than I ever intended and far more beautiful.
What has your personal growth been over the course of since you started the company, and what have you discovered about yourself as a performer and director and producer?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you right now, this is my first time directing anything ever. So that has been an
You're
entirely new
doing a
frontier.
beautiful job.
Thank you so much, Ned. I appreciate that. But I think the thing that has most informed myself as an artist, and also has most informed myself as I've stepped into the world of directing, is just arts leadership in general, and working to adapt around other people as much as I can, working to adapt around other creatives, where I invite people on board, or people literally down my door to try and solve my problems for me, and I invite their talents in. I try to see how I can incorporate whatever their talents are into this space, and learning to adapt to how other people think and talk and work, and making them kind of collaborate seamlessly. That, as a producer, has been invaluable, because theater is a fundamentally collaborative art, no matter where you go. And I know now that regardless of whether I am producing or directing or writing or acting, as I often have, or if I'm even in the building, I now know that I can act as something of an intermediate between a lot of people, where I know how to try and take what one person is saying and translate it so that it works for another, or somebody's vision and translate it so it works for another, and try and find sort of compromises and intersections between those sorts of skills. I think that skill set has been so valuable for me as an artist, and so valuable for me as a person. That has been great.
We've talked a lot about community so far and how valuable the theater community is to you, and you know how that's like facilitated your personal growth a lot. How do you work within the shows that you produce to build that community among the cast members?
Well, I will say that it is probably harder than a lot of other environments, considering that we are truly flying by the seat of our pants constantly on these shows. The timelines are all a little bit less free than maybe I would like them to be. But I think the way that I can build a community, and the way that I can build an environment for people to be comfortable, and for me to say you can do what you want, giving them the resources, like I'd mentioned, is just kind of by being on their level. I think the fact that we're all students, it's a different vibe in these rehearsal rooms than anything I've worked with before, and I'm certain you're seeing that as well as you're in them. Everybody is so much more down to earth, and we are all wanting to connect with each other as friends, in addition to as directors. And there's still very much a hierarchy of, we defer to these people. People are very respectful. Um, no, generally speaking, nobody's been too unruly, and we get our work done in time. But we still have an environment where, after rehearsal is done, let's all go to the Chinese place up the street, and we'll all hang out together like that, because we're still kids in that sense. And even though, yes, we are in a rehearsal process, we are doing work, it is also kind of like hanging out with friends. It's a really, really nice vibe that we've cultivated. And despite the fact that I cannot do as many coordinated, formalized endeavors to try and make a bigger, better community in terms of cast gatherings and more formalized things like that, we construct that naturally by being a student group, by being a student environment, and by being an environment of people who all kind of like each other and want to connect with each other and want to learn from each other, because we each have such different strengths and different talents. The thing I was talking about earlier of being an intermediary between people, I think as we've started to have conversations where our choreographer is talking to our music director, is talking to our writer, is talking to our set designer, they're all learning things about their friends that they didn't know that they could do, where you learn something about the skill set of a person who you've been close to for the last 4 years that just completely changes how you think of that person. and it makes you respect them more, and it creates a real environment, both of the camaraderie that comes from just being a bunch of teenagers in a room doing the thing that they love, but also one of respect, where we're learning how skilled and how passionate we all are in these projects. I think that's so valuable, and I think it's something that we try to work to cultivate as time goes on.
Do you think the fast pacing of the rehearsal process helps to cultivate that community on obviously in a much more condensed fashion, but regardless, do you think that contributes to the community building?
Sure. I mean, I think in a sense, especially for the first two productions, because we were testing a lot of unknown ground, and we still are with this one with how we're expanding. But and especially in those first two productions, we're all in the same boat, and the storm is coming, and we want to prepare. We know that we have the skills to do. We know that we're running a rehearsal environment, and a we have scripts that we're generally working with, where we like the material that we're working with, and we're doing well with it. But throughout that rehearsal process, there is that little voice in the back of your head that's like, you're off the deep end right now. There's no safety net. There's nobody that's here to catch you. There's no adult in the back to defer to who can then fix all of your problems. We have to be working together in order to make sure that we do it ourselves. And I think that some of that sink or swim, it does help build a community in a sense. It does, because we're all in that same boat. We're all in that same struggle, and we want to connect with each other because we all want so desperately for these projects and these shows to be something cool. And I think we succeed in some ways.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Thanks.
Speaking of the creative team for Death Do Us Part, when did you meet Ben Teller and Gavin Evanson, and when did you guys first connect? When did you realize that you could work really well with those two?
Sure. Well, Ben Teller, our composer, I met both Ben Teller, composer, and Gavin Evanson, choreographer, in my freshman year of high school, both just through doing shows. Uh, Actually, Ben, I did not meet through doing shows. Ben was in my homeroom, and we just kind of immediately clicked. And I borderline forced him to audition for the school play. I taught him how to do a British accent during lunch, and then he went into the actual audition and got a leading part, which is incredible to me. He's great. But we've all always been good friends, I think. The first time we all worked together was in Bruisers, with Ben on music and me producing, and then Gavin was directing as well as choreographing at that time. And I think we had kinks that we needed to work out, but nothing will work out kinks like a trial by fire, like Bruisers kind of was. Such that it's not a matter of when did we find out that we were good to work together. It's we had to work together, and we needed to find out how to compromise on that in order to have a show that was a success. And I think we really did, despite the fact that we are different people who think differently and who operate differently, and sometimes there are realistically conflicts that arise from that. I think we have gotten exceptionally good at adapting to each other and working towards compromises, because we respect each other and we know that we each have different skill sets that are valuable in a room. So I wouldn't say that there's any one moment of I found out that these guys were so good to work with. It's more like these two guys were the two people that I really trusted and knew in order to get this project done. And I sat them in a room and we figured it the hell out. And that took time.
Yeah. Um, when did you start brainstorming for Death Do Us Part? What was the original idea, and how has the original idea kind of shifted?
That is a fun question, because we wrote about five different full plots, or frankly, I wrote five different full plot summaries for different shows prior to doing this.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. Well, no, it was super fun, I should say. It wasn't fun to have to kill my darlings, but I think we wound up with the winning concept in the end, because there's a lot of challenges for this particular show. We needed something that involved a lot of principal actors, for whom, because we knew we were going to be getting more auditions than last time and from more talented kids, and we wanted to accept them as accept as many as of those kids as is possible, and we wanted to give them opportunities that could showcase their talents, because that's the whole point of the company, to try and create try and create those stages where they have freedom to go and do things, freedom to go do the things they want, grow as an actor, and learn from that. But we wanted many principal actors. We wanted a show that was marketable, which is a very hard thing to make. We wanted a show that had something to say for itself. We wanted a show that had an understandable and pitchable premise. We wanted a show that could be summarized in an Instagram post, really, which is not an easy thing to do. We're also trying to push the boundaries a little bit. I can't get on my high horse about wanting to do more meaningful work and then go and write the next Seussical. It has to be something that is a little bit unexpected
That's a
and it
good
is a little bit
comparison.
weird at times. And I'm not to dog on Seussical. I love Seussical, but
Other things you
it
can
might not be
think.
the right show for this company. But I firmly do believe that Death Do His Part is. I'll say we were working on a show about a high school band breaking up for a while that was going to try and reflect some of our own struggles as we were drawing on them, which we still think could be a good show later on, but maybe not for this environment. It was a little bit too small. It was a little bit too, how do I say, weird, honestly, for the larger audience that we're attempting to expand to this time. That's not to say that Death Do His Part isn't weird. It is a show about a grave robber and ghosts and magic, but it's still a fun time, and I think it'll really get some good laughs. It'll really get some good reactions. I'm hopeful.
Were you surprised by the influx of auditions?
Oh my
Was that
goodness, yes. I had to adapt the show to the number of auditions we got. We got so many auditions from so many people. I wrote some of the songs to deliberately be easier, and we started getting auditions from people who clearly could handle way more than I was about to give them. So we made some of the songs harder. I wrote certain songs after discovering that certain people auditioned. I'll give the very specific example of Larkin Foster audition. Larkin Foster is playing the part of Butch Cassidy in this show, and Butch Cassidy previously did not have a song to himself.
hmm,
And it was Larkin's audition and me realizing, oh my goodness, Larkin would be fantastic on this part, but I want to make sure it justifies Larkin. I want to make sure this is a good showcase of the incredible talents that this actor has to offer. I wrote Larkin a song the night I received that self tape, and that is now "Ain't It Sweet to Be the W No," which is one of my favorite songs in the show. So no, we not only was I surprised by the number of actors, I had to scramble and cover for the amount of actors that auditioned in order to make a more desirable product for everybody to be part of, and one that showcased the sheer amount of talents that we received.
was it difficult to turn people away because you're trying to kind of build that community that is breaking through those barriers for youth theater? Is that hard for you?
It is. It really really is, especially in the position that is very unique to being a student director in this, in which so many of those people are my friends. That is a rough thing to have to do. That is a rough thing to have to say to people. Despite the fact that we are running a show that is twice the size of Bruisers in terms of cast and far larger than that in terms of band, crew, etc. But turning people away was a difficult thing, and yet I also think a valuable thing. I think being on this end of the table for me is very insightful in learning what I'm looking for. So often, if you don't land an audition, it is not because you are a bad performer. I received several incredible performers who I was infuriated that I had to turn away just because I didn't have something to give them. Um, we also wanted to make a point of trying to spread the love in this one. There are only 3 actors who have been in a previous Rigby production in this production of the 18 who are in the cast. And that is something that we're very proud of, and that is something that was hard to do. It meant we had to turn some people away, which is hard. But I think that hearing no is a valuable thing. I think that getting used to, as an actor at least, I think getting used to throwing your best shot out there and it not working is how it's going to happen in the real world so often. And despite the fact that it was hard for me to say no to all of my friends who I was really trying to fight for and see if I could find little ways to incorporate people, and trust me, I did. Um, Despite that effort, it is still hard, but it is also valuable. And I hope everybody who auditioned for Death Do His Part, even if you did not make the cut, please know that you did an absolutely fantastic job, and you made my job of casting you all very hard. And that I hope that the experience of auditioning was extremely valuable for you, and that there are so many opportunities in the Tucson area. Maybe not maybe not ones precisely like this, but there are so many fantastic. Hey Productions is doing their season. Inner Voice is constantly doing stuff. CYT is wonderful. There are all of these phenomenal opportunities to get involved in. And I think it is a good thing for you to throw your shot at as many of them as you can, and sometimes hear no. And hopefully more often than that, hear yes at a youth level. It's nice.
How have you kind of expanded your outreach to, get other theater companies, other actors from other companies, other youth actors, to be interested in the Rigby Theater Company? Is it mostly word of mouth? How are you kind of going about promotion?
Sure. I will say there is a significant amount of word of mouth. The previous two shows we advertised almost entirely off of social media, which did constrain us to the specific bubble of Tucson actors who most of them would be vaguely aware of who I was. But I think word of mouth is a very powerful thing, and especially as you are the person who starts hiring everybody's friends. Um, we've tried to make an environment that I'm very pleased to hear often people really enjoy working in. And they tell their friends, and their friends genuinely want to audition. And oftentimes it's talented people whose friends are talented people, which leads us to having a situation like we did where we had so many auditioners. But I think word of mouth is a powerful component of that. For this show in particular, we are trying to run a larger coordinated news campaign. I just got off of 2 different interviews with 2 different news networks. And I'm going straight on to this podcast. We're trying to do a larger physical presence. We're making flyers and that sort of thing, and all sorts of physical media that we can put up around town. We want to run a larger, funner campaign where we also give a bit of a larger peek into our rehearsal process. So much of my advertisement previously has been I announce whatever the details of the show are, and then I give a bunch of photos of the rehearsal process, and that is it. I want to try and have more clips of songs and more little sneak peeks into the rehearsal schedule, and also our thought process, hence why I'm here. Hence why we're working on some more new spots. You'll be hearing from Ben in an article with the Daily Star fairly soon, which we're very excited about. But yes, we're for the past 2 shows, we've run a smaller campaign that I think through word of mouth, especially in the Tucson youth theater community, which is a very small world, we have trickled to most corners of that, and we are trying to expand also just to larger Tucson awareness and a lot of the Tucson theater audiences. Because we definitely have a bit of an unconventional audience in terms of a lot of kids and a lot of parents of kids that I would like to break from. I would like to have more people who are just random theater goers who go to an Arts Express show or a Rogue show and then go to a Rigby show. That would be a lovely thing to have.
Well, I will say it is an honor to be on the Jacob Toole press junket.
Oh, good God. The Jacob Toole press junket. What a way to word it. I would stray from trying to emphasize myself in that promotion so much as I'm trying to build up the brand of it. I think that putting a voice on it and putting a face on it is going to be nice. But I will also say that after this production, I will be going out of state for college. And I'm absolutely still going to be involved with the company, and the company is going to be staying here, and I will step down and I will become a resident producer, and we will have a new standing president. I cannot quite announce who that is, but it is a person who has been involved in every show that we've done, and it's somebody who I deeply respect. And I like that. I like that because this is not the Jacob Toole Company, and it is not the Jacob Toole space. It is the space that is claimed by anybody who has ever cared about these shows or who has involved their time or efforts into these shows, who has auditioned or left fun comments or drawn fan art of our stuff. Every single person who brings even the most small trickle of energy and effort into this company, I want that to be their company as much as I humanly can. So yeah, it's the Jacob Toole press dragon, whatever. That's probably correct, frankly. But I'd like to imagine that the company itself is expanding far beyond myself because there are far greater possibilities and far greater ventures that wait just beyond the efforts of a single person. And they've already happened. I think my involvement is among the least remarkable parts of this company. I think the crazy thing to me is how many people latch onto it, how many talented people latch onto it and take it as something serious. Because then it kind of becomes something serious. That's significant to me, and that's something I'd like to continue.
We talked earlier about your kind of, in as far as show ideas go, letting go of your babies. Is that a struggle for you? The Rigby Theater Company is your baby. Are you, how do you feel that you're kind of, well, you're not letting it go, but you're putting it into different hands and you're letting it kind of grow and continue its growth. despite your, moving to Chicago.
Sure, sure, yeah. Well, the branding is too good. I'm never ditching it. But um, I will say that everything ever associated with this company that has impressed me has generally speaking been from other people. I'm very proud of the work that I've done. I think I've definitely grown as a person significantly, and my capabilities have grown tenfold from the time I started this production in terms of the ambition and the scope of the projects that we do here. But time and again, I set expectations and people exceed them. Gavin, our choreographer for this show, so often I will give him a very simple. I will give him formations like you start, you do this, you do this, you do this. These are very baseline expectations. He will go and then he will have people doing the most elaborate fight choreography I've ever seen on a stage. It is ridiculous. or elaborate anything choreography. He's a genius. And so many of these other people are as well. People who are my friends, people who I wanted to throw a shot, and then given an open field and given the resources to sort of create and fulfill on their own visions for these pieces, they have always blown me out of the water. So I would not say that I'm letting go of my darling. My darling was whatever thought experiment I had for the Young Playwright Showcase that wound up being far greater than I ever expected it to be. What it is now is no longer mine. The reason that the company is significant, and I will say this time and again, is because of everybody else who has invested in it, and I want to give them a chance to do that even further. I think that we've had the opportunity to incorporate kids as student directors and student writers, which is a really cool thing that I haven't heard of at a lot of other places. Or there are other venues that exist for that, but it's uncommon. Um, but I think student administrators and student producers, the skill set that I have gained, where I was talking about being an intermediary, being adaptable to other people's visions, that is so useful. And I would like to put other kids in a position where they are forced to learn it, because regardless of anything that happens in our lives as artists from here out, that skill set is going to be integral to whatever we do, integral to how do we function as artists, really. But yes, I'm not so worried about leaving my darling, because first of all, I'm still well attached to it, and second of all, I think it has evolved far beyond being my darling at this point.
It's a long distance relationship with your darling.
That is terrifying to think of, but you're probably not wrong. A lot of my involvement will have to be digital, but I will be in person for the next production, and I'm very glad about that.
Awesome. Well, I will say I think everything that you're doing is such an honorable cause and so vital to the growth of the Tucson community
I
as a
appreciate that. Thank
whole
you.
and the greater theater community. And I certainly hope that it continues to blossom and expand, and I'm sure it will in ways that continue to amaze me and everybody here in Tucson.
I appreciate that. Thanks. I'll say it's. I sure would like to get it to a point where it is more of a mainstay, where it is more vital to this community. But I think right now the main function that it has is it's something weird and new in a way, in a lot of different ways, and it challenges things just by existing. Where it's, why does participation in youth theater have to be a several $100 purchase, for example? Why is that the case? And in most cases, there's a phenomenal accounting reason that I am sure, if explained to me, I would perfectly agree with. But I know that we are not beholden to it. I know that we can function at maybe more of a shoestring level, but we can make something more accessible. I know we can make opportunities for people where the pieces are weird and zany and from kids in your community. It's the kid who sits over in on the other side of class who is writing the play that you are now starring in. I think that that's so valuable. I think as we do new and weird things in the community, um, I hope that that is valuable to people, and I also hope to anybody watching that it prompts them to try their own things. It is a very, very monumental and difficult task to try and produce your own works or produce anything really, but it is viable, and I know it exists other places as well. There are plenty of places up in Phoenix, where there are student organizations, college and high school level, where the kids produce their own shows, and that's far more of a commonplace thing that I'm learning. Um, I would love for that to be down here in Tucson. I want kids to see this and say, "Hey, maybe I can do my weird idea. Maybe I can do my gender bent production of Heathers, which is not a joke. Somebody in Phoenix did that at a high school level, and it's
That's
fabulous. Look it up.
awesome. That's
But
fantastic.
it's crazy. But if you have these ideas and you have the efforts and you have the friends to do it, which I know the kids in this city and I know how talented they are, and I knew from the get go that it would be possible to create a high quality product on our stage just with the talent and enthusiasm of these kids. It is open, and I encourage other people to try and do that. I encourage you to make more opportunities for yourselves where you see them. Nobody's gonna tell you it's your time now. It's the power is in your hands if you want to go out and make art. And I really hope, I really, really do hope people do. And I really hope if they want to, my email is rigbytheater@gmail.com. Talk to me about it. Genuinely. It's on our website too. I would love to hear about the projects people are interested in making, what they're writing, what they're creating, because Tucson is a fantastic city to be doing this in. It is a city that is filled to the brim with art and theater and people who are so passionate about it, who have already built all of this infrastructure, who are so happy to let you take advantage of it, and so happy to lend their event for a cost, their venues or their wisdom or their experience or their advice. It's all so much more possible than you would ever assume that it would be. And I really encourage any kid watching this, who thinks they might be in a position to go out and do something like this, do it. It's worth it.
I couldn't have said that any better. And I don't think many people could. So,
Uh, Thank you. I appreciate that, Nick.
so you're off to college to
My friend.
Northwestern University. What was your audition process like? How have you taken
My
what you've learned from Tucson and brought that to college auditions?
Absolutely, yeah. My audition process, I applied largely. I applied to a mix of acting and musical theater programs across the nation. And I will say straight away that I walked into the college auditions process and I was dead set on I want to go to Michigan. I wanted to be a Go Blue kid. That was the thing I said to her. And I think being beholden to a school like that is not so much a valuable thing, because you hear all the time about, just as much as these schools are auditioning you, you are auditioning these schools. And I would go into auditions and I would go into environments where we would talk to the artistic directors, which is a very valuable person to talk to. And you should listen to those people as they talk, because you are going to hear certain things that really excite you about those programs. And you are going to hear certain things where you hear them and you're like, I did not know that about this program. And I don't know if that fits me as an artist, if that's something that works for me, if that's something that I want in my educational environment, even just how the teachers interact with you. Um, and that happened several times at my auditions, where I would be at an audition in Unifieds. I highly recommend going to Unifieds. It saves so much time and money and effort for the in-person auditions, because you are going to have to deal with those at some point. I would meet artistic directors and I would talk to them, and they would completely shatter my idea of a school, and they would redefine it. And certain other ones, I was able to hear from KO at Northwestern, who heads their musical theater program, and she talked about uh, versatile artists and multifaceted artists, and artists who write and artists who produce. And she talked about all the student theater that was going there. And Northwestern previously was a school that I had on my list that I was like, I'm pretty sure this is a cool program and it's a great school, so I'd like to be interested in it. And I heard more and more about how those artistic directors were running that program. And I was so excited about that program, to a point where I had schools that, of my initial list, I got into schools that were higher on my initial list than Northwestern, and I chose Northwestern over them, because after listening to the artistic director, after listening to very specifically what the school would be offering me in addition to what I would be offering it, I guess I don't really offer much to it. It is a very different transaction.
Oh, yes, you
But
do. Don't sell yourself short.
there you go. Oh my goodness, thank you, Nate. But you think about what the school is offering you, because that is really what the transaction is about. Listen to them, internalize it, and see how it does or does not help you in your journey as an artist, is the advice that I would give to people. And let that redefine what your ideal school environment looks like. let your initial assumptions not be firm. Let yourself be swayed by what people say, by what you hear from alumni and current students who are invaluable to, so valuable to talk to. Um, that would be my major advice. First of all, go to Unified because it's very convenient and saves time and money. But second of all, listen to the people who you are auditioning for when they're talking, and see how that redefines your interest in those schools that you're auditioning for. That may be different than how you initially pictured them. That's what I'd say.
Well, you landed on Northwestern, like you said, and
Thrilled.
every episode of the podcast, I like to play a game with my guest. So
Okay.
today's game is called Go U Northwestern, and in this game, I will read you two categories of Northwestern arts alumni. In each category, there is a list of shows or productions that Northwestern alumni may have been involved in. And if you can tell me which of the four shows on each list actually had a Northwestern alumni in it, you win the satisfaction of knowing you won.
You're killing me. Okay. No, I'm so gonna lose at this, but let's do it. Come on.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Your first list, these are Broadway shows.
Roger.
Avenue Q, Hello Dolly, Company, or Shrek. Or all of the above.
Oh, there's a doozy. Well, Shrek had Brian D.R.C. James, who I know is an alum. Hello, Dolly. We're talking the revival.
We're talking the revival.
We're talking the revival. And the other two were Avenue Q and
Company.
Company. You know, Avenue Q and Company sound like shows that Northwestern graduates would be involved in, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick Hello, Dolly.
It is all of the above.
Oh, you're killing me. Who was in Hello, Dolly?
Hello Dolly, Kate Baldwin, who played Sandra Bloom on Broadway in Big Fish, but she played Irene Malloy in Hello Dolly. In the
I'm
revival.
infuriated. I do know who that is, and I did not know that she played that part. That is very funny because I do like Helen Dolly a lot.
All right, your second category is comedy.
Oh golly.
You've got The Late Show with Stephen Colbert,
Okay, come on.
Saturday Night Live, Seinfeld, and Late Night with Seth Meyers, or all of the above.
Late Night with Seth Meyers. Oh, are we counting like guests here? If somebody was ever a guest on the Late Night with Seth
No,
Meyers?
just like people on the like creative staff of the shows.
Of the creative staff. Well, I'm pretty sure Seth Meyers. I'm suddenly doubting whether or not Seth Meyers was a Northwestern alum, but I know Stephen Colbert is, and I feel like you wouldn't put on two talk shows just to mess with me. So I'm going with Seth Meyers, and you're going to correct me.
It is all of the above.
You scoundrel, Nate. You've done it again. I'm 0 for 2.
Yep. So Stephen Colbert is a Northwestern alumni. Saturday Night Live has a whole slate of Northwestern alumni. Anna Gasteyer, Gary Kroger, all sorts of others. Seinfeld, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who played Elaine, went to Northwestern, and then Seth Meyers himself.
You're kidding. Oh, I knew I was right to doubt myself. That's all right. I'll get over it.
Well, I'll still give it to you. You win the satisfaction of knowing you won because they were all correct, so you picked the correct answer both times.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, sure. I'll pat myself on the back. Why not?
Give it to yourself. Give it to yourself.
Yeah, just for my own ego, I'll take that. That's good.
Yeah. Now we're going to jump right into our listener questions, and actually both of our listener questions today come from Lucas Gomez, the set designer of Death Do Us Part.
To be expected. There you go. That's fair.
So Lucas writes, as both the author and director of Death Do Us Part, I must imagine that you have experienced a unique degree of control over this production. That is, the type of control that comes with an almost unrestricted freedom to adapt the work at every stage from concept to fruition. In what capacity have you utilized this freedom, and to what end?
I will tell you right now, I knew you could have not told me that Lucas wrote that, and I would have immediately known that it was him. There's nobody else who writes like that except for Lucas. Actually, to answer the question, though, I will say normally those are two different people, the person who's writing the show as opposed to the person who's directing the show, and there's value in that because very, very often the fresh set of eyes, the fresh set of a new creative on a piece can bring it so much more life. And I've already experienced that with something like Bruisers, and having Gavin be the director on that for something that we wrote. He took my vision for the show and made it so much more complicated and so much cooler than I would have done it. And I'm very, very grateful for that. I will say far more than my involvement, the intersection between my involvement as a writer and a director. I think that those I've taken a little bit less advantage of as compared to a writer and a producer. Because
Hmm.
first of all, there was some time where I did not know that I would be directing the show. We were workshopping a few other people before it landed right back to me. But as the producer, I am in the very unique position because often as you are writing a show, you can kind of put some pie in the sky things out there that you can say, oh, some director, some producer will have to deal with it 5 years down the line. No, I will have to deal with it in August, and I know my budget, and I know that it is tight. So anything that I would write, I knew I had to be able to stage and put together in a way that could be done in 3 months in August, from the time that I was writing. I will say Lucas Gomez himself was extremely helpful in that. Lucas was our set designer who himself he will never ever ever toot his own horn, but I will absolutely do it for him. He's an absolute genius. I was floating ideas as a producer of what the set might look like, and I described very specifically because we have two large set elements. One of them is a boxcar, and the other one is a grave, an open grave that is on set. And I described the boxcar to him directly after we had finished a test in our macroeconomics class, and we received the test back. And he said, "Oh, like this?" And he flipped the macroeconomics test over and drew it in perfect perspective, which is ridiculous to me. And then he proceeded to use those exact plans to then make renders of it and design the actual thing. He's insane. I love him. But having somebody like that on board, knowing that everything I'm writing has to exist in 3 months' time in a way that I know we can build it, but also having somebody who is smart enough and practical enough, as Lucas was, frankly, in order to be able to build those things, make those dreams a reality, that has been far greater of a crossover, I will say. My involvement as a director, certainly I've been thinking of pictures kind of as I've been writing them, but I tried, frankly, to keep my foot off the gas pedal in that because I was not entirely certain if somebody else would be directing. So I wrote a script that was fairly adaptable to whatever vision, and I'm now having to come up with that vision myself, which has been a uniquely difficult but rewarding process.
Well, it sounds like your microeconomics class paid off.
Macro, but yes, yeah, indeed.
Yes. Macro, micro, I haven't taken it. That's pretty obvious.
Nah, there you go, there you go. You'll have a doozy of a time, let me tell you. That's all right.
Lucas's second question is, he writes, in tandem with that question, what in your mind is the end for this production? What is the impact that you hope it will have offstage, be it for the student community behind it or the greater Tucson community that is poised to receive it? How does that end align with the original goals and ideals of the Rigby Theater Company itself, those that have persisted since its foundation?
My God, Lucas, you've done it again. Great.
He's a better host than I am. What am I doing
No,
here?
hey, whoa. He's in his department. You go yours. Respect those two things. We're learning. But oh my goodness, yes, I think that I've talked somewhat for a while now about wanting to encourage kids to be able to make their own art, to be able to make their own productions akin to this. And that obviously does not literally need to be a full scale production like this, but I hope that the Rigby Theater Company and its presence in the Tucson community, its presence online, I hope people have followed that and learned that it is a little bit more realistic to achieve their own dreams in terms of their own stories and their own ideas that are rattling around in their head. It is more viable to make those than you think. I think with the Young Playwright Showcase, we had something kind of fun and kind of charming going. A lot of people really enjoyed that, which I was very happy. And it was a good project. I think Bruisers continued that. I think Bruisers was very charming. I think elements of it were still a little bit rough, but we were doing something cool and people really enjoyed the piece itself. People left that theater and they were very happy. They were very moved. This time we are shooting to make something genuinely impressive. We are shooting to make something that it does not matter if it were coming from a student company or it does not matter if it were coming from one of the larger community theaters in Tucson. I want somebody who has seen both to walk out and think that a student show was genuinely as impressive. And for a kid to walk out and think, maybe I can do this too. That is my objective. My objective is always to to leave that impression on people and to say, hey, the power is in your hands. Because I mean, for myself as a person with beyond the company, I think that my overarching goal with my life is to make theater more meaningful and accessible to people around me. That is my goal. And I think the Rigby Company has been my best endeavor in doing that. But I really, really hope that Death Do Us Part, especially, people walk out and they find meaning in it, and they realize that theater and that creating things is so much more accessible than they realize. It's hard. It's extremely hard, and I'm not going to pretend that it's not. And in some ways, it's impractical. Not everybody is in the position that I'm very, very privileged to be in, where I received a paycheck from an acting gig and then was able to turn around and put the entire thing back into this company that I wanted to create. That is not realistic for everybody, but with the right collaborators and with the right effort and the right mindset, it is. And also look among your friends. It is extremely convenient that my best friends, no joke, happen to be a composer, an architect, a choreographer, and my leading man. It's insane to me. It's insane to me, but it's also, you will see that in your friends. I know a lot of the kids who operate in this Tucson youth environment, and so many kids have such interesting skills where there are student journalists. That is not a thing that I've heard of other places. There is such a strange hodgepodge of extremely talented kids who are all talented in very unique ways that I think if you look around your peers, you will find people who will help make your dreams a reality. That is the impression that I want both the Rigby Company as a whole, but especially Death Do Us Part to leave. And I want it to continue doing that as it continues to exist. And we make more productions and more scholarships and more opportunities for people to have to get behind the wheel and to just kind of run wild for a bit, discover things about themselves, discover things about how they work and how they work with others. That is the value of this production. That is the value of this company. That is what I want people to walk away with.
And I think people are walking away with it. We're not even done with Death Do Us Part, and I have already walked away with it. So you are certainly achieving your mission, Mr. Toole.
I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Wiley. That is good.
I like to close out every episode with the same 3 questions for all
Sure.
of my guests as a comparison point for our listeners. So I like to call these the Theater Threes. And the first of the 3
Nice.
is, what is your favorite musical?
I have 2 answers. Can I give them both?
Yes, you certainly can.
Great. As an album that I would just generally listen to and bob my head to, The Who's Tommy. I love it to bits. It's incredible. I have a poster of it on my wall behind me. As a person who likes reading plays and musicals now and is writing them and is paying far more attention to the structure of them, Into the Woods. I think Into the Woods, it takes on so much and handles it so elegantly. It is unlike anything else that I've ever seen or worked with. And also, I'm completely biased in saying that because I did play Jack and I had so much fun playing. But I think that having all of those, using, oh my God, the structure of Into the Woods is incredible. Using so many intertwined smaller stories to sort of illustrate butterfly effects and how small the world around us really is and how much our actions matter. It's genius to me that Sondheim and Lapine communicated that on a structural level as opposed to anything. It's not in your face, but it's happening as the show goes on if you're looking for it. And I love that so much.
The second question is, what actor did you look up to as you were starting theater, and why?
Oh. Well, definitely when I was first starting out, it was Aaron Tveit, because I think every guy who goes into musical theater wants to be Mr. Tenergy Man. I would like to give a better answer to that now. His name, Kevin Del Aguila. I saw him in Some Like It Hot, and I was phenomenally impressed by him. But what I've been more phenomenally impressed by is how he does whatever he wants. This guy wrote the book for, I believe it's Dog Man the musical, like the Captain Underpants franchise. He wrote
Oh,
the
yeah,
book.
yeah.
He
That came through
stars
Tucson not too long ago.
Yeah. He stars in plays. He stars in musicals. He was Smee in Peter and the Starcatcher. He dances, he sings, he writes, he produces, he directs. Having that sort of versatility in your life and being so open to everything that this art has to offer, I think that that's incredible. I think that guy's incredible. If I could be anybody, and however old Mr. Del Aguila is, I do not want to assume. I would want to be like him. I would want to be multifaceted, and I would want to be sticking my toes everywhere I humanly could just to see what happens.
A Renaissance man.
Ooh. Yeah, and actually being good at everything like Kevin Delagula would be very nice.
The third and final question of the Theater Threes is, what advice do you have for theater kids or anyone wanting to get into the industry?
Anyone wanting to get into the industry or theater kids? Well, my advice is probably far more relevant to theater kids. It is, I've reiterated, I'll sum up a lot of the things that I've said where I've tried to communicate with theater kids. First of all, your dreams are more achievable than you realize, then your ideas are more achievable than you realize. In order to take stories and weird concepts that you have in your head and try and make them a reality. And I would love to encourage more of that happening in Tucson. It is a great and ultimately fulfilling thing that I think is so valuable to people. The second thing is, I mentioned earlier, find a spot to do theater and commit to it wholeheartedly. Put your absolute everything into it. The dumber you feel, the better you look, probably. And sometimes you are going to look stupid, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes. But the more mistakes you make means the more choices you make. And as you make choices, you will slowly, by process of elimination, find out what doesn't work for you. You will overcome your own isms and your own hesitations. And you will slowly develop into an actor that you can be a little bit more proud of. I really believe that. It is about finding accessible spaces or creating them if you so desire, but that's a bit more of a niche thing, and dedicating yourself to them, and then you using your own dedication to make a better product for everybody. That is what will serve you well, I think, as a theater kid. I'd like to imagine that's true for the industry as a whole, but what do I know? I haven't really entered it.
But you will, and you will be successful in whatever you do. Thank you so much, Jacob, for joining me and for just, being the creative force that you are. I'm endlessly impressed by you and your talents and everything that you've accomplished. So, please keep sharing it with the world.
I'll try my best.
Thanks so much, Jacob.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining me, Jacob. I encourage you all to see Death Do Us Part at the Pima Community College Center for the Arts on August 7th and 8th. It is truly an incredible production. Tickets and more information are available at rigbytheater.com or at the link in the description. TheatreQs is produced by Nate Wiley Productions and me, Nathaniel Wiley, featuring music by Jeffrey Evans. Jeff Evans is a musician and choir teacher from Tucson, Arizona. The song that you heard in this episode is Highway Breakdown Song. Take it away, Mr. Evans.
Oh, someday I will make it there. Until then, I'll just sit beside the chariot that will carry me home, no matter the trouble we find.
If you like what you hear in this podcast, follow the podcast and check out our website, natewileyproductions.com, for more information about the podcast, articles on small businesses, photo galleries, and much, much more. Thank you all for listening today.